Hello and welcome to another episode of The Damage Report, a talk show where we talk for better or for worse. Today, I'll be playing the worst, the better played by Ana Kasparian. How's it going, Ana?
Pretty good, pretty good. Can't complain. We're super close to that Thanksgiving break. So, every time something annoying happens, I just try to remind myself we're almost there. 4 days off in a row.
We're almost there. And importantly, we're going to be getting into the Thanksgiving spirit at the close of the show. We're going to be going through some of the things that we're most thankful for. We've also gotten a number of comments from our audience about what they're thankful for. Obviously, everybody watching us, thank you for those who've already joined us, whether you're on Twitch or YouTube, the members thing, all that. It's a non-traditional show. Ana beat me up and took my setup today. So she's sitting in my chair and I'm in a room where boxes are kept, I guess.
Yeah, I feel pretty terrible about it. So John asked me yesterday, are you gonna come in studio to do the show or are you gonna do it from home? And ideally, I get to do it from home, right? But my husband just got a new job that requires him to also work from home in the same space, and he needs to be on the phone, which would be a little bit distracting. As we
well,
do
that's the
show,
pandemic.
So.
But no, we're glad, everybody's been able to keep a job. No, I'm kidding. This is actually where I do most of my work when I'm not on the show. So I'm perfectly comfortable here. Got my coffee, got everything. You know what you should get? Everybody watching this, you should get your finger on the clicker that clicks on the like button and let people know that we're live. Because many people, hundreds of thousands of people have signed up for notifications when we go live, and YouTube has decided that that really shouldn't mean anything. But if you hit the like button, maybe they'll find out about it, and that would be awesome. All that said, feel free to send us tweets and comments and super chats and all that. We'll be responding as we go. But with that, Ana Kasparian, why don't we launch into the news of the day?
Let's do it.
Okay. Yesterday, the transition to the Biden presidency began because Emily Murphy decided, hey, you know what, maybe I'll do my job. At some point, I'll do my job. And in addition to that, the transition actually launching, breaking news this morning, Pennsylvania has certified the vote. That follows just a couple days ago, Michigan doing the same. So in every way that matters, this thing is basically being wrapped up. The question is, when is the president and his cabal of losers and goons, when are they gonna wrap this thing up and accept that we're moving on? Technically, and I'm gonna keep this to a bare minimum, Trump's response, because I know there's literally no one in the world that hates what Trump has to say more than Ana Kasparian. But in response to Emily Murphy announcing that the GSA was going to start doing the actual transition, allow the Biden team to start coordinating with, for instance, the pandemic response group, get the money they need to do security clearances and stuff like that. Trump tweeted, I wanna thank Emily Murphy at GSA for her steadfast dedication and loyalty to our country. I mean, that's him being nice, I guess, but she's finally not blocking it. That's the most steadfast and loyal she's been. But anyway, he acknowledges that she's been harassed, threatened, and abused, while pointedly not pointing out who has been harassing, threatening, and abusing her, and says that our case strongly continues. So apparently, according to sources behind the scenes, Donald Trump got to the position where he would allow this transition to go forward because of one very important stipulation that was made clear to him. In conversations in recent days that intensified Monday morning, top aides told the president the transition needed to begin. He did not need to say the word concede, they told him, according to multiple people briefed on the discussion. So once he was reassured by all of his representatives that he didn't need to formally concede, he decided to stop blocking this transition from happening. And I know that you I believe, responded to this live on the main show yesterday, but what do you think about this? Is it over? Does it matter? Are we any closer to a return to normalcy than we were 48 hours ago?
I think we're inching closer to it being over, but it depends on what you are referring to when you say it, right? Like, is it over, meaning Biden is the president-elect? He will be inaugurated on January 20th. Yeah, I think that's pretty clear at this point. Whether Trump wants to believe it or not, his statement was a concession. The transition process has begun. Fox News hosts have already acknowledged that Biden is president-elect. But is it over in regard to Donald Trump kind of dropping off the face of the earth? No, that's unlikely. And Trump is part of the problem, but the other part of the problem is that the media just loves doing these insane, superficial, unbearable stories about his tweets because he's gonna keep tweeting insane things. And Trump brings in the ratings for these cable news networks, for instance. And so they're gonna keep talking about his tweets. It's gonna continue getting pitched in my morning meetings. I'm gonna continue wanting to like shoot myself. Like I can't take it anymore. I feel like the last 4 years have consisted of me trying to not only maintain my sanity, but since we spend so much time on garbage that doesn't require any thinking, like any monkey can talk about Trump's tweets. I feel like I have to do a lot of extra reading and research and work outside of work just to keep my brain stimulated. That's how dumb this administration has been.
Yeah, I get your frustration. And look, and maybe you will get what you want, because maybe in all the ways that matters in terms of the actual transition happening inside of the federal government, as well as he lost more cases over the last 24 hours. So the judicial path, I guess, to him remaining president seems to be closing too. The issue is that at least as of right now, technically he is still the president for the next 2 months. He isn't doing the job. And he also, by the way, importantly, unless I believe he spoke very briefly earlier today, but it was over so fast I didn't even see it, hasn't answered a single question from the press since the election. And it's not like any of the challenges that face our country have gone away. As of right, like in the past, I totally agree with you. Right now, this is literally all that we have. The only window we have into the madman who hopefully has given up his long shot bid to remain president despite the will of the people. But this is the only information we're getting out of there, is the occasional anonymous aide and something that he tweets or whatever. Like he's certainly not talking to the press.
Yeah, no, I mean it does. You're right. Trump retweeting Randy Quaid and his lunacy is important. It really is. I mean, it gives us a peek into what Trump is thinking. We know.
I love those holiday movies growing up, Anna. This is a hard day for some of us. I liked Independence Day. I still tear up.
I don't even know who Randy Quaid is, and I don't even care. Like, okay. I hate the news cycle so much. And I know I'm being like extra bitter today when I should be happy that things are moving along in the old direction of a Biden cabinet that's just littered with all sorts of people who were in Obama's administration and were pretty disastrous in Obama's administration as well. But whatever, better than Trump. Yeah. Sure, and we'll have 4 years to critique all of the mistakes that or I shouldn't say mistakes, the intentional terrible decisions the Biden campaign or Biden administration will be making. But for me at this point, I think what should be clear to everyone who likes to acknowledge reality is that Donald Trump never once cared about anyone other than himself. Now that he has lost the general election, he is MIA or playing golf. He doesn't care to do anything in regard to stimulus, which is so desperately needed right now. Americans desperately need financial relief. A bunch of protections, including eviction protections and things like that, are set to expire at the end of this year. And it doesn't appear that he cares, doesn't appear that he wants to do anything about it. The only policy related moves I see him making right now, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this, John, is essentially trying to find ways to drill on public lands and destroy our environment further. So that's who Trump is. He's always looking for a way to make a buck, but he doesn't care about the American people. He doesn't care about his own family members. He couldn't even keep them safe from coronavirus. That's who that man is. And I just want to get to a point in this country where we don't have to hear from him ever again. But unfortunately, hey, the news industry needs to make money. And if he's putting out lunatic tweets, we'll be covering them for years to come.
Well, at least 57 days. We do have the inauguration of 57 days. Yeah, you're right. They're trying to rush through the drilling in Anwar, now trying to rush through the permitting process for these. I forget exactly which Native American group it is, but some important site. They want to like rush through the permits for mining rights there. Like there's all these articles about just trying to set so many fires in terms of foreign policy that Joe Biden won't be able to do anything aside from trying to put them out, which I personally think he could set his own fires and probably will. I wouldn't worry too much about that. But yeah, and the funny thing is, in terms of what he's actually doing, because he's not, the federal government isn't functioning in the way that it's supposed to. He doesn't care about the pandemic. It's not actually happening. He's not actually going to work. He's not meeting with people. They're firing people, and they're doing some stuff like that. But what seems so odd about it is there was a bit of Tucker Carlson's monologue last night where he said one of the things that infuriates him the most about the media's collusion with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden is that neither of them ever said why they wanted to be president or what they would do. And the media allowing them to get elected without ever having to say what they wanted to be president for, that is the biggest election fraud of all. Which seems odd because I'm sure you covered, how many times was Donald Trump asked by friendly interviewer, Sean Hannity, what's your agenda for your second term? And he would just answer some other question, like he couldn't think of anything. And now he's not gonna have a second term, but he does have 2 months where he's still gonna be the most powerful person in the world. And he doesn't really seem to care. Like he doesn't, what does he want to do? Maybe he'll pardon himself. That really is the only big thing that we have any reason to believe he's thinking about at this point, which just seems so odd. Like I think about you, and I know you have very little interest in being engaged in politics. You wouldn't run for president. But if you were handed it for 2 months, you'd find something to do with that time. And he has no interest in any of it. The serious function of the government or even the weird, abrasive, damaging, corrosive way that he's run it so far in his first term, he basically is just checked out.
Yeah, he's just checked out. He's very much the type of person who likes to take his ball and go home. I just love the imagery because it really does symbolize who Donald Trump is as a person, just like this bitter, sore loser who even in this position of power has decided, no, I'm mad. I'm gonna go play golf or I'm gonna hide out in my basement, right? That's who Trump is. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned having 2 months in this position of being the most powerful person in the world. You can actually, as we've learned through the Trump administration, do quite a bit through executive orders. And yeah, I mean, I would go to town. I would. But that's the thing, like I would go to town because I get pleasure in making the country a better place, right? Not just for myself, but for everyone. Yeah. I get pleasure over the idea of walking outside of my home and not seeing giant homeless encampments. I like the idea of people being housed. I like the idea of people having stability in their lives. But Donald Trump has never cared about any of that because he's never known what it's like to struggle. He's never known what it's like to actually have to work for what he has. His papa handed over $413 million for his inheritance. And then he proceeded to go bankrupt several times, 6 times. And Deutsche Bank still gave him massive loans, even though he was a proven failure. Donald Trump is the epitome of everything that's wrong in American culture, right? Where someone like him who was born into wealth can continue to fail upwards to the most powerful position in the country. That's who Donald Trump is. That's what this country has enabled. And I think we need to change that. The question is, can we and will we?
Yeah, I almost put a story in the rundown about Elon Musk, how he's now surpassed, I think it's Bill Gates, become the second richest person, and Tesla is valued at, I think they said $500 billion. And when I saw the headline, I thought, give me a Molotov cocktail, let's burn this thing down, because it's all BS. None of it means anything. Tesla's not worth $500 billion, that doesn't mean anything. This hasn't been a good year for Tesla. Like he has been so aggressively idiotic all year. The whole thing is just really frustrating. The incentives, it's all about the incentives, and the incentives are all BS.
I love that phrase, aggressively idiotic. I'm gonna use that, it's so good.
Like he said, I think that by the end of April, the COVID cases will be down to basically 0. And then he just kept doubling down and doubling down. Our country is full of people being showered with wealth for being aggressively idiotic and wrong about things that got people killed. And it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they say. And we certainly see it in right-wing media, which is what we're gonna turn to now. Okay, as Donald Trump is being pushed closer and closer to having to, if not acknowledge reality, at least flee from reality and from the White House, we now turn to the various elements of his base of support to see how are they processing their fantasies sort of being pulled down one after the other. Some are trying to be their version of honest about it. So take a look at this. This is Laura Ingraham from last night.
You see it there. And as unpleasant and disappointing as these past 3 weeks have been to so many of us, as much as we wish things were different, this is where things stand tonight. Now, legal challenges continue in a number of states. Serious questions about vote counting, poll watcher access are outstanding. But unless the legal situation changes in a dramatic and frankly an unlikely manner, Joe Biden will be inaugurated on January 20th. Now, to say this does not mean I don't think that this election was rife with problems and potential fraud. And to say this does not constitute being a sellout to the conservative populist movement that I've been fighting for, I don't know, 25 years. And it does not mean that I disagree at all with the president's right and obligation to pursue all legitimate legal challenges to this outcome. To say this constitutes living in reality. And if I offered you a false reality, if I told you that there was an excellent, phenomenal chance that the Supreme Court was going to step in and deliver a victory to President Trump, I'd be lying to you. Now, you've known me for a long time now, and you know me long enough to know that I will not lie to you or simply tell you what you want to hear.
I had to keep that last part in because that's the funniest thing a conservative has said in literally years. I cannot lie to you. Laura Ingraham. Remember when Laura Ingraham, like 8 days ago, had that shadowy figure with the voice modulator that was going to prove all the fraud? But no,
how does she not have any like self-respect? The fact that she allowed that to happen on her show. Anyway, keep going.
Well, and by the way, like others in media saw that and thought, I gotta get me some of that. Rush Limbaugh yesterday was saying, like they had this big press conference and they said they were gonna give us stuff. They should have at least had a hacker, and you could put a screen up in front of him if you wanna save his identity, and he'd say, I hacked this guy and I hacked that guy and I can prove fraud. That was a monologue from Rush Limbaugh saying, no, we're just gonna have effectively hand puppets obscured by shadow to vaguely prove all of our fantasies are true. Now there, she is acknowledging that Donald Trump isn't going to be president, even though she holds out hope that the Supreme Court will deliver a win for him, which she knows damn well means the people don't decide, the Supreme Court decides if that were to come to pass. But the part I want to briefly focus on there is that half of that statement was, hey, everybody, keep watching, keep watching. I'm not a traitor. I've supported the conservative populist movement, which doesn't exist. It's just conservatism. It doesn't mean I'm a traitor. I'm not a traitor at all. Keep watching. There was definitely some fear of strike back there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's terrified of the audience that she enabled with lunacy. She's worried that they're gonna turn on her for acknowledging what the reality is. And that's why, even though in the short term, it's the most frustrating thing and it feels like we're losing and no one respects or cares about the truth anymore. Everyone just wants to hear what they want to hear. I mean, let me just be honest. There's a component of that on the left as well, right? Totally. Where if you acknowledge reality and you don't give certain audience members exactly what they want to hear, they'll revolt against you, they're angry, they're gonna go watch the Jimmy Dore show, have at it, please go enjoy, right? But it's a bigger contingent on the right, and it's because they've been enabled by so many people like Laura Ingraham. And when I say enabled, I mean, basically persuaded to completely disregard reality and believe what you want to believe alternative facts, believe whatever makes you comfortable in your own little bubble, right? While completely ignoring what the facts on the ground are. So I love that she's so scared of her own audience going against her because she has no choice. She has to acknowledge what the reality of the situation is. Biden won, he's president-elect. There was not widespread voter fraud.
Yeah.
Whoever was on her show, that shadowy figure who allegedly experienced voter fraud firsthand, that was a lie. That was a lie. They've never provided evidence. Every single court case that the Trump campaign brought to various battleground states have been dismissed because of a lack of evidence. So this is the situation, and people got to deal with it. Sorry.
Yeah, well, and look, she's wise to be concerned, because not only is OAN and Newsmax and other people who have a webcam and a graphics package they purchase for $5 online, they're going to try to get those people, and maybe even some people inside of Fox News might try to show that they're more loyal. Now, Tucker Carlson, a guy who had criticized Sidney Powell right at the right moment because she was about to be ejected like a day after. This is someone that obviously people, I would say, spend 50% of each day tripping over themselves to give him credit that he doesn't deserve. He spent last night, while she was acknowledging reality, doing a monologue about how the 2020 election was not fair. No honest person would claim that it was fair. Because Tucker Carlson is a person that Andrew Lawrence, in a follow-up tweet, very rightly identified, is a guy that loves to say nobody could disagree with the points that he's making as a way to prove that the points are accurate. It doesn't actually work that way. But he believes that if you say that while looking at the camera with a really blank expression, that it makes you seem reasonable. So he's saying, no, the entire thing was rigged. He might be willing to go along with it, like he'll cover Biden when he becomes president, but this entire thing was stolen. That is the only reasonable position that you can hold. So he didn't have the shadowy figure, and he criticized Sidney Powell. But at the end of the day, that's all frosting. The cake is telling millions of conservatives that election was rigged. Any election we lose is rigged. You don't have to respect any of this and keep watching me, because I'm going to continue to tell you that.
Look, I actually agree with Tucker Carlson. The election was not fair. And it wasn't fair that prior to the election, a Trump loyalist, Louis DeJoy, who was very conveniently named as a postmaster general, tried to dismantle the post office during an election year where people were going to rely heavily on mail-in ballots. It wasn't fair that the Trump campaign did everything and anything to spread disinformation about what the reality is in regard to mail-in ballots, voter fraud. I mean, the disinformation was endless. So I agree, it wasn't fair. There were all sorts of unfair things that happened leading up to Election Day. And despite all of these efforts to suppress voters, Biden still ended up winning.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, they tried real hard to prevent people from showing up to vote, from turning in their mail-in ballots. And then after the fact, the Trump campaign did everything and anything possible to cancel, throw out perfectly valid and legally cast ballots.
Yeah.
Biden ended up winning anyway.
And getting over 80 million votes for the first time in American presidential history. Totally. We're gonna turn in just a couple minutes to a few more ways that some of the more regular multi-millionaire Trump followers are dealing with this. Because of course, while Trump might go away, we're still gonna have to deal with his fans. But I wanted to read just a few comments before we move on. First, a comment on Twitch from Uper Gardner, who says, Anna, we must know, how do you get your hair looking so amazing?
I just wash it.
That's all you do is wash it?
I wash it and then I blow dry it and then I curl it. But I do that once a week. Like, no one should be washing their hair more than once a week. I know that sounds gross to some people, but it isn't. The natural oils in your hair nourish your hair, so don't wash your hair often. That's the secret.
Okay. I do every day, but my hair only lives for about a week. It's basically like a housefly, so I think it's okay. Anyway, over on the super chats, Chakuseki says, "Oh, powerful beef dragon, give us strength this week to cope with the wretched possum beard Lord Ted Cruz during the war on Thanksgiving." Nice, Chakuseki, thank you. John
wait, hold on. So beef dragon is a thing. So yeah, that's it. Now you're beef dragon, really?
I don't know. I believe it's exclusionary. So I've been going with what Bart says. He doesn't want to boot vegans to the curbs. He says beyond beef dragon. I prefer that. Anyway, John Person says 57 days until Trump loses immunity. Also true. Gayuji, it's Gayuji's birthday, everybody.
Happy birthday!
Super chat. Rob Barracuda Shively says, "Good morning, Drywall Dragon and Beef Daddy Dragon. Happy Tuesday to us both. Bring on the news." Drywall Dragon, I like that. Yeah. Oh my God, how adorable was your anniversary present from your husband that you did working class?
It was the best. It really was. You and I were talking about money and freedom and all that stuff before we went live today, and my goal is to save enough to retire early so I can be a carpenter. Like nice. In my 40s, I'm gonna make the pivot. Like Obama made the pivot to Asia, I'm making the pivot to carpentry and woodworking. That's the goal. Okay.
And I'm just trying to pivot to writing fantasy novels, but apparently it's news for at least the near future. Eric Selvag says, John is so obsessed with John Oliver that he stole his set. Hey, that's true. Bro Joe Baggins says, John, is that your own personal copy of John Oliver's Void? Yes, it is actually. It beyond this white paper is a green screen, but I was very worried that if I gave you a video of me speaking over a green screen, you would do something with it. So this is what you got. Anyway, okay, so with that, why don't we jump back into this because still more to discuss. At some point, Donald Trump is going to transition out. So what happens to his followers? There's a society out there that's soon going to be run by Joe Biden, and they're going to have to be a part of it. Or will they? Because some are giving signs that they just want to back off of this whole thing, this whole being in America, participating in American politics thing. William Legate, an independent journalist, tweeted, there's a growing movement on Parler of Georgia Trump supporters vowing to write his name in for the Senate runoffs in protest of the rigged vote. So I don't go on Parler, I got no interest in it. And if I was vocal on it, I would be banned because for all that they talk about free speech, if you're a leftist, they literally ban you from the site. But apparently some of them are thinking, no, we're just gonna vote for Trump in every election from here on out. And I say, have at it.
Oh no, please don't do that. That would be awful. No, I am triggered. I need a safe space.
What a snowflake. No, you'll make me more of a snowflake if you don't even vote at all. But anyway, so that might have an influence on the Senate runoffs. I think there's a lot of influences that are going to affect it. And by the way, can't give you too many details, but we're going to be doing a special around those Senate runoffs because of course they're incredibly important. Some are just backing off of everything. Others are saying after being so law and order up until this point that now all bets are off. My favorite modern day philosopher, Charlie Kirk, said, it is time to disobey all orders that violate our natural rights. No more curfews, lockdowns, or authoritarian measures. Disobey, resist, defy, open America. Although bear in mind, he's also the guy that tweeted, you cannot pick and choose which laws to follow. I guess you can. I guess he, like America, disagrees with Charlie Kirk. But anyway, apparently now the time for resistance has begun. And it's not just him, Anna. I saw on Dan Bongino, his Twitter profile is now just #resist.
Oh my God.
Trump is still president and he's already resisting.
What are you gonna do?
I don't know.
What are you gonna do? I don't even know how to respond to any of this stuff.
Sure.
Like, yeah, including Charlie Kirk, encouraging people. By the way, Charlie Kirk's business partner and good friend died of COVID, so he knows. Wow. He knows the severity of the situation. He knows what the pandemic can do. The co-founder of Turning Point USA is dead from COVID, and this guy is, by the way, in his bunker, in his isolated bunker where he's safe from COVID. He's telling you guys to go out there and essentially ignore social distancing orders, lockdown orders, all of that. Because he doesn't care if you die, right? But he loves making money off of pushing that message.
Totally.
He's so disgusting. He's absolutely disgusting. And I mean, how else is he gonna pay for that coke habit? Allegedly.
Oh my God. Okay. And then finally, so this is really gonna be, this is the coming together of a couple of different threads that we've been weaving in the show so far. So what is Laura Ingraham worried about? Laura Ingraham is worried that if she tells something approaching the truth, the people that she has got addicted to pundit drugs will start to pine for a stronger dose. It's a strained metaphor, but I've been working on it. And the issue is that there are pundit drug dealers out there with a more refined, pure version of it. So she might be willing to finally acknowledge reality, but right now out there on Twitter are people with tons of reach. I can't believe this tweet from Lynn Wood, who's supposedly a lawyer, although it's Twitter, so God only knows. Maybe this is someone that other people know, I don't know. This person has almost 600,000 followers, so I guess a lot of people know them. Tweeted just yesterday night, Hillary and Brad Raffensperger, the Georgia Secretary of State, overheard at an Atlanta cafe, not a hipster coffee shop, an Atlanta cafe. Brad, does BleachBit work on videotapes? Hillary, not as well as a hammer. Brad, any other way to destroy evidence? Hillary, if I had been in Nixon's shoes, I would have burned the tapes. To which Linwood adds, felony. That tweet has over 15,000 retweets, and the replies are full of people saying, yes, it's happening. He's not done. Trump's gonna be president. It's all just nonsense. That didn't happen. Not a single bit of that actually happened. But Laura Ingraham doesn't control the right. Tucker Carlson doesn't control the right. There are a lot of crazy people out there that are still gonna believe whatever random tweet comports with what they want reality to look like. That was last night.
Yeah.
The transition has begun, but these people are never gonna accept it.
Well, the good news is, since Biden has been elected, he's bringing dignity back, and as a result, we're going to be able to unify with these people, and then maybe they'll accept reality. Then, after we unify with them,
maybe.
Dignity, decency,
dignity. They're going to
new
rise
age in America.
Exactly, they're going to rise above themselves and realize that democracy is great and bipartisanship is even greater. That's what they're going to do. Anyway, it's interesting because you bring up these Democrats that have no idea what time it is and who we're facing. Why don't we talk about one of those Democrats actually?
Do it.
Dianne Feinstein has announced that she is not going to be seeking to remain the sort of ranking senior Democrat on the Judiciary Committee. As she put out a statement saying, after serving as a lead Democrat for 4 years, I will not seek the chairmanship or ranking member position in the next Congress, obviously depending on how those Georgia Senate runoffs go. I look forward to continuing to serve as a senior Democrat on the Judiciary, Intelligence, Appropriations, and Rules Committees as we work with the Biden administration. And she says, why is she doing this? Well, apparently she's got a lot that she has to focus on. She's saying California is a huge state confronting two existential threats, wildfire and drought, that are only getting worse with climate change. In the next Congress, I plan to increase my attention on those two crucial issues. Oh, what do you know? Dianne Feinstein suddenly cares about climate change, sort of shallowly, in a comment or two. And we're gonna have responses to that. But at the very least, Anna, she is not going to be, if the Democrats take over, she is not the Senate, she is not going to seek to become the chairman or chairwoman of the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah, that's not good enough. I think Senator Feinstein should step down. I don't think she has any business being in government. I think that she has been an absolute disappointment, to say the least, on every issue, including climate change, by the way. When she was approached by young climate organizers who demanded acceptance of the Green New Deal, because really that's the only type of blueprint for doing what's necessary to mitigate the impact of climate change. The way that she responded to those young organizers was, I've been doing this for a while. I know better than you. Okay, I know better than you. So how about you turn around, get out of my office? Like ridiculous excuse of, we got to focus on climate change. Like that's no, it's because you were a disappointment. And she was so awful in the Amy Coney Barrett confirmation hearings.
Yep.
That even corporate Democrats were furious with her. Chuck Schumer apparently had to take her aside and have a stern talking with her, because she not only gave Lindsey Graham a giant bear hug once the confirmation was over, she also uttered the words, "This is the best confirmation hearing I've ever been part of." Amy Coney Barrett just like breezed right through. It was the easiest confirmation.
And maybe that's what she means.
And that was after so many people poured money into the DNC, hoping that there would be some effort to fight that confirmation, but there wasn't. There wasn't even a minor effort, no effort at all.
Yeah, it's like the injury is they get a supermajority on the Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett really doesn't have to answer for her record, which barely exists anyway. We're all just told that she's the greatest legal mind of her generation. We don't have to have any evidence of that. We have no idea what she's actually going to do on the court. And so she gets in. The insult then is Feinstein just said, "You guys are the best." And you know what? I know the election is just in like 3 weeks, but I want to make sure that people know that all of this is acceptable. This is the best. You guys are great. There's nothing horrible or incredibly hypocritical about this. I couldn't believe that, to say that it was the best hearings ever. And yeah, obviously she can't be in charge of that. I don't know what she's gonna spend her time doing. She says now she's gonna focus on climate change. With what? You gonna be pushing for the Green New Deal? You're gonna do nothing. You're gonna like push for some sort of light, like carbon cap, like in trade program. Like, what is she actually gonna do? Does her staff even know what she means when she says that she's gonna focus on climate change?
Yeah, she's not an ally in any way, like to the left. She's not gonna do anything about climate change. She has used her position of power to push for all sorts of goodies that would benefit her real estate investor husband. It's just, I've got no love for Dianne Feinstein, none at all. She's so disconnected and detached from her own constituents in the state of California. She doesn't care about climate change. She doesn't care about how California as a state is completely falling apart because of economic inequality. So I'm not gonna miss her. I just wish that she would fully step down from the Senate. But stepping down as the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee is an okay start. I just like to see more. Completely withdraw. You know, Dianne Feinstein, resist being in any type of chamber, in any type of governing. No one wants you. Republicans certainly don't want you. The left doesn't want you. Be gone.
#resist. Sunrise Movement, by the way, is also calling for her to resign. Like, imagine, she would never, she will never, she won't. But if she did, and then Newsom would never, won't. But if we could get like Katie Porter and Ro Khanna, or like Porter and Barbara Lee or something, like imagine how much improved the Senate would be by that 1-2 punch. It's not gonna happen for a number of reasons, and she's just effectively, like, let's keep it real. I'm sure there's some people watching this that are fans of her. She was primaried the last time around. What has she done since then?
Nothing.
And between now when she finally steps down, because I'm assuming this is her last term, what is she gonna do? She's one of the most senior Democrats. That's a position of respect and authority. What is she going to use it for? I don't think she even has an answer for that. She is effectively just blocking that seat from being held by someone more representative of their constituents in California and the Democratic Party across the country. It is just a big boulder sitting there stopping more from being done. That's it. Now, I want to read just a couple of comments and then we'll move into one of the new picks for the Biden administration. This is one that we briefly mentioned yesterday on the show, but want to go a little bit more into it today. Let's see. Wayne Sugihara says, "Hi, Daddy and Salty Dragons. Anything about the observation planes that Trump is trashing and the related treaty he's abandoning, as reported on Rachel yesterday?" Yes, so effectively, there are these couple of planes that have specialized observation equipment that's used to make sure that our relationship with Russia, that's in compliance with these treaties, and effectively, Trump is trying to either trash or sell off those planes before Biden can take over and start to make use of them. I would hope that, in theory, one of our allies who's probably interested in Biden's international leadership more so than Donald Trump's could buy them and then give them back in a couple of months. I don't know exactly how that's gonna shake out, but it is another thing that Donald Trump on the way out is trying to do as much damage as he can. I don't know if that's something. 100%, yeah. Lazy Peon says, "Is this last week's damage report with Ana Kasparian and John Iadarola?" Yeah, we're doing a hybrid show here. Okay. Jason Tastrophe saying, "Loving Anna on today and only slightly thrown off by John being in a John Oliver style white void." I get it. He wasn't the first person with a white background, damn it. Anyway, Although, yes, I do wish that we could be friends or I could shadow him. Shanna Elizabeth says, hi, John and Anna, happy Tuesday. I love the balance between the two of you. My moods flip between laughing so I don't cry at the aggressive idiocy and just pure irritation. By the way, Anna, your hair and makeup are on point.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
There's so much well, we gotta amend it because it is aggressive, well-compensated idiocy. Like these people are basically just debasing themselves in front of the country, but being paid incredibly well to do so.
Yeah.
Now, with that, let's move on to the next new member of the incoming administration. Yesterday in the program, we mentioned that John Kerry is once again going to be serving in the federal government. In this case, with President-elect Joe Biden announcing just yesterday that the former Secretary of State would serve as a special presidential envoy for the climate. Their transition team put out a statement saying this marks the first time that the NSC will include an official dedicated to climate change, reflecting the president-elect's commitment to addressing climate change as an urgent national security issue. And what has been fascinating about this is obviously like I'm inclined to look at John Kerry being involved, in the White House again as like a really sort of thing. Like, man, they never really go away, do they? Like to put it in historical context, John Kerry was the first president I ever voted for 1 billion years ago, and he is still hanging out. But perhaps more to the point for this position, the response to John Kerry being chosen as that special envoy has been very mixed. So there have been groups like Food and Water Action calling the choice an alarming red flag. The group's executive director accused Kerry of being a longtime apologist for fossil fuel fracking and a reliable promoter of false climate solutions like market-based carbon trading schemes. Which, look, if you look over John Kerry's past in this area, he he focuses on climate change, but his solutions are often funneled through capitalism and through trying to provide incentives for corporations rather than strong government action to bar certain forms of energy production, generation, distribution, those sorts of things. And it certainly is not what I would describe as sort of the new style, the new generation of climate thinking that places it in the nexus of basically every aspect of American society and the economy coming together, because it really does touch all of those. John Kerry is not really that sort of person. Anna, when you heard about John Kerry being chosen, what did you think about him for this position?
No, everything you just said is 100% right, and I had a very similar reaction. I'm actually kind of shocked at the positive reaction that we've seen among progressives when it comes to various cabinet picks, including like Janet Yellen, for instance. But same with Kerry. I think that you hit the nail on the head. And in regard to the critique that you read, look, the one thing that you can't get mad at Biden about is he didn't lie to us when he was campaigning. He talked about how much he loves fracking. I'm not gonna ban fracking, I love fracking. We're gonna keep fracking. I mean, he's of course he's going to choose someone who has a favorable perspective on fracking. But more importantly, I think that the very position that Kerry has been chosen for, not something pertaining to climate change, but specifically the angle that he would be focusing on in regard to climate change, the national security risk. That is something that I think Americans need to keep a very close eye on, because something that's starting to be discussed and looked into is this whole notion of eco-fascism. And I'm worried about, okay, if we're going to tackle climate change from a national security perspective, what does that look like? Right? Because the United States is the top polluter and has been the top polluter. And because of our actions, other countries are paying the consequences. Certain parts of the world are quickly becoming, either difficult to live in or impossible to live in. And so as we see huge populations of people, migrate around the world looking for safety, how is the United States going to respond to that? Is it going to respond to that the same way we responded to Syrian refugees? We go into regions of the world, create instability, we militarize, we do everything that we can to ensure that our defense contractors are making the money they want to make. And then when there's a refugee crisis, we give everyone the middle finger, right? So I'm curious I'm not curious. I suspect that we're gonna have a very similar reaction to mass migration that's fueled by climate change, which we overwhelmingly contributed to.
Yeah, and this is obviously going to be a gradual process that is going to ramp up over time, but when it's happening, and maybe we'll be doing coverage of the 2038 election, or I don't even know if that's an election year for president, but the right is going to be demonizing based on it, and they will have totally forgotten that they were ignoring climate change all along the way and saying nothing should be done. But then, man, once there's chaos and instability, they're sure going to be worried about it and running campaigns based on it. But anyway, yeah, as you did say though, the response from some progressives who I genuinely very much trust in this area has been pretty positive. And I think in part it is because this is the international envoy. So there's going to be other people domestically focused on climate change. John Kerry does have a lot of experience in diplomacy. Dealing with climate change is going to require a lot of international effort, and he has shown in the past an ability to get countries on board with things. So that is potentially the good side. What he will get them on board with is potentially a different thing. So we will have to see. But really fast, I do want to read some of the positive responses, including Greta Thunberg, who says, good to know, when John Kerry announced that he would be involved.
Real positive, real positive.
It is,
good
but
to know.
When she has a negative response to something, she is not really loath to make it known.
Right.
And more to the point, I don't know Greta. I've never spoken with Greta, but Varshini Prakash, from Sunrise Movement, is someone that I have a lot of respect for and have spoken with many times. She says, I served with Secretary Kerry this summer on the Biden-Sanders task force, and one thing is clear: he really does care about stopping climate change. That's something we can work with. An encouraging move from the Biden team. Now I'm keeping my eyes peeled for domestic equivalent. She did work with him, and she has been critical of potential picks. There were far worse people theoretically, but people like Ed Markey was very positive towards this. He's been a big booster of the Green New Deal from the very beginning. Jay Inslee, who made his entire presidential run about fighting climate change, had a pretty positive response to it. This is just one part of what is going to be a lot of positions that are going to be dealing with climate change, but I suppose there are worse people than could be picked than John Kerry, but of course we'll be watching.
Yeah, he's not the former CEO of ExxonMobil, but that's a very low bar.
And that's nice.
Putting that out there.
Can I really fast? We don't have to focus on anything. I just saw this and I thought it was so funny because it had to do with climate change. Ivanka Trump tweeted, fact, greenhouse gases generated by the US will slide 9.2% this year, tumbling to the lowest level in at least 3 decades. And I'm assuming that just must be some awesome thing that Trump did, and not a natural consequence of our entire society grinding to a halt as a result of the pandemic that she and her father didn't care about.
Man,
it's just such a stupid thing to say.
She just ended up being everything and worse, like everything I suspected and worse, right? At first it was like, oh, maybe she's just gonna be complicit. Remember when she was supposed to be the moderating force within the Trump administration? How hilarious is that?
Yes.
And then that quickly changed to, oh, well, she's complicit. But no, she enables, like there's no question. She definitely enables birds of a feather.
Yeah, birds of a feather flying with aggressive idiocy.
Yes.
Just like, hey, fact, good thing happened. I don't know. It's like an axe murder coming up and hacking your arm off, and someone else pointing out, hey, you just lost weight. Like, well, yes, but context is key. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, let's turn to slightly darker stuff. We're about to enter into the holiday season, holidays that I'm a big fan of. Unfortunately, it is not just a holiday season. It is a holiday season in the context of a continuing pandemic. And I've been trying for weeks now to get people to take that seriously, and I'm beginning to think it's not working. I wanna show you something. This is a little infographic, a little animated infographic that I think might be one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen. Take a look.
Wow.
What you're seeing there is air traffic. There's so many. And it looks like our country is being swarmed by bumblebees.
Wow.
Every one of those is a plane full of hundreds of people, and they are freely mixing from basically every major city in the country. And we still have a couple of days. Those are the people who like left for their holiday travel early. There's gonna be some who are gonna be leaving tonight and tomorrow night. And it's a pandemic. And the warnings have been out there, but you see like how much faith do you have that people have heeded the warnings of people like the CDC and the damage report? And this is shaping up to be a real dark holiday season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to, I know that a lot of the focus is on individual behavior for good reason. But I do also want to focus on not just the lack of leadership that we've seen from Donald Trump. That's a given. We've talked about it in great detail for like 10 months at this point in regard to COVID and the spread of this pandemic. But it is kind of difficult to trust in the advice you're getting from your elected officials as those very elected officials proceed to live life as if the pandemic does not apply to them in any way. I mean, you have Gavin Newsom going to Maui to meet up with some lobbyists. You have Gavin Newsom, again, governor of California, going to Northern California to some fancy place called the French Laundry, which I only heard about for the first time last week, to again meet with lobbyists, not wearing a mask, hobnobbing, hanging out. And so when Americans see that from elected officials who tell us that we need to stay home, we shouldn't see our family members during the holidays, of course some of them are gonna scoff at it because people are tired. I'm not justifying the risky behavior, so let me just get that out of the way. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that in order to be a leader, you need to lead. That means doing things that are difficult. That means leading by example. So if you're hanging out, okay, if you're the governor of New Jersey and you're out with your family eating dinner, on the same day that you tell your constituents that they need to sit their asses at home and not see their families during the holidays, it's hypocrisy at its finest. You need to lead by example. And we're not seeing that by our elected officials across the board. I'm not just talking about Democrats, I'm not just talking about Republicans, across the board.
I think you're 100% right. And especially when we know that people are looking for an excuse to not care anymore. And like tons of them have been provided with that from almost day one by the right wing. But even some people who don't consider themselves Trump fans, like it is very difficult. And so they've been looking for reasons to think that it's not a big deal. And those sorts of things, like every one of these powerful, well-connected Democrats who finds ways that it doesn't have to apply to them, that sends that signal. And even worse, really, because like, I don't know where Gavin Newsom lives. I don't know what his house looks like. And yet I kind of do. I think we all have a pretty good idea that it's pretty sweet, right? Like he's been holed up during the pandemic the way we have, but not really, because I bet it's a pretty nice place. And still he feels he has to go out to Maui, which I'm sure is lovely. I've been to Maui. That's like the one big trip I've taken in my life. Really liked it. Don't need to go during a pandemic. And I honestly think that the people of Hawaii would prefer if you stop bringing your coronavirus to their island. But it is happening, people are traveling. As the BBC put it, it's an agonizing Thanksgiving dilemma facing millions of Americans, but it's not though. Like, sure, it's Thanksgiving, it's a holiday. It's another holiday where we would love to get together and eat, which is pretty much what every holiday is about, but you don't have to do it. You know what's agonizing? Being on a ventilator is agonizing. You know what's agonizing? Losing your loved one is actually agonizing. Not being able to like sit across from another person while they pass you cranberry sauce is unfortunate. But you can still FaceTime them, you can still Zoom or whatever, you can do that. And you can live to have dozens of Thanksgivings in the future. And so there's still a couple of days. Maybe there's some people that are watching this that think, I love John. John's great. His advice is great, but he doesn't understand. It's different for me. My family takes it more seriously. And I hope for your sake that they do. But in case they don't, let me make one final pitch. You may not trust me and you may not trust some of the numbers, but there's a great tool that I just came across this morning. You can Google the COVID-19 Event Risk Assessment Planning Tool, the COVID-19 Event Risk Assessment Planning Tool. And what this is It lets you look on the county level across the entirety of the US, and it gives you the odds that in a family gathering of 10 individuals, what are the chances in your county that one of those 10 will have COVID? Just as a random chance. And so I decided I will use my own life as an example for you. So if I decided here in LA to have a gathering of 10 people, what are the chances that one of us would have COVID? 53%, slightly more than 1 in 2. But the thing is, I've had Thanksgivings in multiple parts of the country because I have different relatives in different parts. Maybe LA is just like really rife with coronavirus. Well, what if I went to my in-laws down in the valley in Texas? That's a 50% chance that 1 in 10 would have COVID. If I went to my mom's off in Pompano Beach, 60% chance that 1 in 10 would have COVID. If I went to my brother's in Atlanta, Georgia, 67% chance that 1 in 10 would have COVID. These are 4 totally different parts of the country, and your odds of getting it are better than a coin flip in all of them. Now, I hope that there's something about your area or about your family that means that you'll be better protected. But are you willing to risk your own health and the health of the people that you love on that chance, on that coin flip?
And in regard to staying emotionally stable and as happy as you can possibly be at such a difficult time, especially during the holidays, I've kind of learned to, instead of focusing on what I'm gonna be missing out on, right? Spending time with people I love or enjoying the holidays with people I love, try to look at the positives. So, hey, maybe you don't need to see the in-laws this holiday season. Just a little. No, and I love my in-law. I'm not talking for me. I'm just like, obviously. I know that other people, have issues, and so you can avoid it. It's all about what you choose to focus on. That's all I'm saying.
And you know what? You may think, well, I love getting together in a big group because then I can make tons of food. Well, let me blow your mind. You can still make tons of food for just you and one other person. I'm gonna.
Yes, you can. So am I.
I didn't buy a smaller box of stuffing. I bought the same exact amount of stuffing, but now there's only 2 stomachs, and honestly, my wife doesn't eat that much. So
I get so giddy when I think about Thanksgiving. Like I love cooking, I love eating, I love being in my pajamas all day.
Yes.
Not having no makeup, no hair, no nothing. I'm just. You can still enjoy the holidays while social distancing. Just stay safe, guys. Be responsible, stay safe, and try to ignore the poor example that we're seeing from our elected officials. Do what's necessary to keep yourself and your loved ones safe.
Exactly. Now we're about to transition into our big Thanksgiving conversation. Before we do that, though, Ana, because you mentioned that you like to spend the day in your pajamas, which I do too. Do you Thanksgiving movie you like to watch? Is there anything like that?
Traditional Thanksgiving movie? No, I wouldn't say Thanksgiving movie. But I do watch Home Alone at least once during the holiday season. So that's a tradition.
You have to for Christmas. For me, that's my Christmas movie, as well as the first Harry Potter. For some reason, that Christmas scene always gets to me. For me, for Thanksgiving though, it's planes, trains, and automobiles. I always associate that with Thanksgiving. But anyway, with that, you know what? We're talking about Thanksgiving. Why don't we talk about Thanksgiving? As we launch into this holiday season, Ana Kasparian and I would like to focus on the positive for literally the first time this year and talk about 10 things that we're thankful for as we get into Thanksgiving. So I've got 5 things, Ana's got 5 things, and we also have some comments and tweets that were left by our audience members to the posts that we put on our official accounts. Ana, why don't you start off with giving us one of your things that you're thankful for?
Okay, so I thought about this carefully and I decided to list my 5 things in order of importance, starting with, this is all very important to me. But I'm gonna start with, I guess in my world of very important things, what is the least important? So number 5, I wrote substances. and that includes
like clay?
No. I didn't want to have to choose one of these things. So I put it under the umbrella of substances, and the substances that I prefer are pot and whiskey.
Ooh.
So that's number 5.
That's a balanced breakfast right there.
My favorite dinner.
I love that. I'm gonna say this would be my honorary mention. This is my number 6, but for me, it's been gin. That has gotten me through this pandemic. Is gin for some reason? I don't know. Maybe related to my actual number 5, which is my writing group. I'm very thankful for the couple of individuals in my writing group. And because I want to be a writer, I'm drinking more gin. That seems like a classic thing you do. We've been writing all throughout the pandemic. I am closing in on the end of the book I've been writing this year. And I 100% would have long since given up if not for my writing group to keep me honest on it. And so that has been a great thing this year, is meeting up twice a week for that writing group.
I love that. Aw. Should I give you my next one?
What's your number 4?
So my number 4 is nature, because nature has not only gotten me through this pandemic and this pretty awful time, but anytime I kind of need like to heal in any way, or if I need some solitude, some time to think, I always want to be out in nature, right? So these long walks that I go on have really helped. I've been going on super long hikes. When my good friend Michael Brooks passed away, all I wanted to do was go hiking. And I like to go to places where you don't really run into other people. So I'm not like I like hiking Runyon, which is like the Hollywood hike. There's a ton of people there, but I prefer being in places that are feels like you're remote, even though you're still in LA County. Yeah. So and nature, it's just, I don't know, looking at the flowers, looking at just how incredibly beautiful nature is, makes me feel better. So I'm really grateful that I can, rely on nature to get me into a better headspace.
Yeah, anytime I see a random animal out and about, like a random rabbit or something, it's just always so like, oh my God, nature exists. I do like that. And I agree, Runyon is the exact opposite of nature. There are areas of Manhattan that are more natural than Runyon at this point. Anyway, my number 4 is part of nature. It is my dogs, my dog Hilo and my wife's dog Abby. For all of the reasons that I talk about in literally every show, like I go home from work and I immediately cuddle up with my dog. And I bury my face in his fur, and my allergies flare up in about 3 minutes, but it's great and I love it. He cuddles with me. He started to cuddle, like I'll be laying on the bed watching TV, and he comes up and puts his back against mine and just like leans against me. And it's so adorable. Like I don't know what 2020 would have been like without dogs.
They're the best. Well, Charlie is gonna make an appearance, but the placement is a little different for me.
Sure.
So for my 3rd thing on my list, it's my health, right? So it really hit me the other day as I was out in nature, just kind of like reflecting on things. I started thinking about how there are a lot of things that we kind of take for granted. We don't really think about it much. And for me, one of those things is my health. And just like, this goes beyond health, but I'm able to do what I do for work because of certain skills that I have, and like the ability to learn, and just, these are basic things. I mean, anyone can do these things, right? But I just feel really lucky that I'm able to do what I like to do. I'm capable, like I'm a capable person. So I guess I'm grateful that I'm healthy and I'm capable.
Yeah, you are. You know what? I've always described you as a healthy, capable person. My number 3 is going to be TYT, but by that I mean like both the company but my career. Because this year has been incredibly disruptive to basically everybody's life, but I have been lucky enough that I have had this job that it's changed a ton. It's very different. It immediately became very different with the pandemic, but it didn't go away. I never had to worry that I was going to be, out on the street or evicted. These are things that millions of people have had to worry about. And not just that I've had a paycheck, but the show became, the Damage Report became much more personal, sort of like the direct connection we have with our audience very quickly in the pandemic. And I think that was very helpful for me, because this is a year that has really driven people apart from each other, from their coworkers, from society, from their government. And it's been nice to have a connection, and that has been provided to me by TYT. So obviously, all of my issues, some publicly stated, some just that me and Ana know, with this entire industry and career or TYT or whatever, those all remain. But thank God for TYT during this year. It would have been even darker without it.
I like that. So for me though, TYT didn't make the list. But I am grateful for TYT. It would be in my top 10 for sure. Although sometimes I feel like it's killing me, not TYT specifically, just what I do and what we have to talk about every day. But for my number 2 spot, I have family and friends. So that includes my incredibly supportive husband, incredibly supportive colleagues like you, John, my best friend Lauren, my parents who have been like the foundation for my life, for everything that I've accomplished. I wouldn't be able to do it without them. So I'm just so grateful for them. And last but definitely not least, my nieces. I see them every Wednesday. They are just such a huge part of what keeps me happy and sane. And the great thing about kids is when you're with them and when you're really present while you're playing with them and engaging with them, it reminds you of a part of yourself that you kind of lost as you've grown up and matured and became like a professional, whatever it is. You have to kind of act a certain way publicly all the time, and then you lose that childlike curiosity. And I think being around kids and really being present and engaging with them just reminds you of that childlike curiosity that you might have forgotten about. And I really love that.
Yeah, I love that. I haven't seen like any of my family.
Oh, I can't imagine. Like a lot of people are going through that. And yeah. I'm very lucky because everyone in my family, and I have a very small family. I just have one brother, his wife, my parents, and my 2 nieces. And they've all been quarantining, staying home ever since the pandemic began, or at least ever since the pandemic was taken more seriously in this country in March. And so as a result, I'm able to see them. If I wasn't able to see my family, if I wasn't able to like play with my nieces on Wednesdays, I don't know what I would do. I'd lose my mind.
That's adorable. Well, my number 2 is related, and it is as you said earlier in your list. Mine is for my family, I would say the health, although we have lost someone to COVID, but more specifically that my wife and I have gotten through this because we've been the ones quarantining together. And the reason I guess it's obvious, everybody's gonna say something like that, but I really thought one or both of us would get it early on. Like I just sort of accepted at some point, one of us is gonna get this and we're gonna have to see what happens. And that early part of the pandemic, like we were like even just going out to get a little bit of food or whatever, I was so concerned that I would like bring it back to her or something. And so we've been, very vigilant and everything. But I really did assume that one of us would get it, and thankfully we've been lucky from that. Not necessarily 100% immune to any sort of health things or anything like that, but at least not getting that within our immediate family and having it, only affect our extended family to the extent that it has, is better than I feared it would be at the beginning of the year, at least.
Yeah. It's we're so lucky. We're incredibly fortunate that we're able to do what we do, and we still have jobs, and our jobs are safe, like health-wise. So yeah, we're very fortunate. So for me, I'm gonna let you guess, John.
I'm assuming it has to be Charlie, even if you hadn't said. I would assume.
Is that wrong? Is it wrong that Charlie gets the top spot? Is it wrong that Charlie's the real MVP in my life?
It's the only way this list could have ever gone. Why?
Okay, so here's the reasoning. Because all of the things that I listed, there are ebbs and flows, right? So with substances, that was my number 5 spot. You get a little too substancey, you got a little problem, right? So it's not all good. You got moderation. Nature, you enjoy nature, but you also think about how we're rapidly destroying it, and it's not a given, right? And you can't always rely on going out for a long walk. It might be cold, it might be raining. This past summer, it was insanely hot for like 2 weeks, where you couldn't even be outside. You felt like you were on fire the second you stepped outside. It was insane. Health, I'm healthy, but that's obviously, it's not a given. It's not constant. I can still get sick. Family, we're humans. We have our conflicts. We have our issues. Charlie is a constant. Charlie is, no matter how awful things have gotten this year, he's just always been this consistent source of comfort, of love, of affection, loyalty, all of that stuff. Like, it's insane how much this little dog, improved my life. Like, we adopted him in 2016 when I was like in the depths of awful depression, awful anxiety, didn't think I'd be able to get out of it. And Charlie was the catalyst for just improving my entire life. So he's got the top spot. I love my dog.
Well, I don't think anyone is surprised by any of this, but I'm thankful that you have Charlie as well, because it keeps you sane, which is good. And he's a great dog. He deserves that spot. He had a good chance of making it in my top 5 action. I've barely seen him this year. Have I seen him this year? I actually don't remember. I'm sure I have at one point. Anyway, my number 1 is going to be the end of Trump. Sort of, it's coming. Like a transition away from this. And this is not the blind, glee of some people that are like, yay, all the bad's gone. No, the bad's not gone, but some of it is. Some of it will be replaced, not with the best thing ever, but with better things. And what we have given ourselves in transitioning out of these years, once it's actually done, is a fighting chance on some of these issues. It is a chance and it requires fighting. Both parts of that, please bear in mind, a fighting chance. But we do have a fighting chance on some of these issues, including ones that we've talked about so far in the program today. The news wasn't always great under Obama, obviously. It wasn't great before that, but at least some of these just insane skeletons will be out of government. We won't have to deal immediately with Stephen Miller. We won't have to deal immediately again with William Barr and Mike Pompeo. Some of them will probably, circle the drain and eventually be dredged up by whatever comes next from the Republican Party. I'm not blind to that, but we at least will get a little bit of peace, a chance to wage a more positive war on the issues we care about and the world we want to see, rather than just a defensive war to try to sort of dull the edges of the blade that's been at our throat for multiple years. So that is what I am thankful for, that as we end the worst year ever, we're at least getting rid of some of the worst things ever.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to have that on your list for sure. I'm just I think I'm a lot less optimistic than you are, just as a person overall. I guess it's just hard for me to stop and enjoy the fact that Trump will be out of office, because all I can think about now is a lot of these cabinet picks for Biden are awful, So, but I need to take my own advice and just stop for a second and just pivot my mind to the positive and enjoy that for even a little bit, and then I can move on to Biden's cabinet.
Now, really fast, let's read a few of the submissions that were sent in. Obviously, Anna and I are thankful for a number of things which we've gone over, but audience members are thankful too. And I think it's important that it's been a depressing year. We put a pin in some of the things that we do have going for us. Nick is thankful for my health and for having my family healthy and still around. I know someone who lost a father to COVID. Exactly. Anyone who's been able to get through this without losing anyone should be thankful of that. Scott is thankful that he's still alive at all. So that's good. That's good. You need that for everything else. Leo is thankful that there's people like you that amplifies our progressive voice. Well, thank you, Leo. Anna and I are doing our best. DJ is thankful for planet Earth. We only have one and the orange one didn't do it much good. Keep up the progressive voice and recycle. Yes, while also pushing for environmental policies that are obviously going to be orders of magnitude bigger than any personal stuff. You still have to do the personal stuff, but our government has a far bigger responsibility. Vanessa is thankful for her boyfriend, Chris. He has kept me sane while I get yelled at as a customer service representative for Medicaid and food stamps. I can only imagine being involved in any sort of program like that this year has got to have been even more hectic. Dominic Franco is thankful that I haven't gone insane. John Iadarola hasn't gone insane. And also for board games and video games. I'm thankful for those as well, Dominic. Wendy is eternally grateful to have a roof over her head, food on the table, a good job, and a kitty who constantly insists on snuggles.
Aww.
Oh, it's like a little tiny Charlie.
Yeah.
Christopher is grateful for the fact that I'm still employed during COVID. Yeah, imagine like the economic strain on top of all of the fear around the pandemic and everything. And then every day to see that the government barely did something for like a minute. And then that was it. And they didn't feel, even in election year, they didn't have to do nothing.
Yeah, and then they yell at us for not staying home. Some people can't stay home. Some people literally have to work because the federal government has completely abandoned them.
Yeah, there are people who have died because of COVID because they had to go work.
Exactly.
And they didn't have to go work if the government, including some people in government who want to do the right thing, if we had a critical mass. Anton is thankful this year for the same thing as every other year, Keanu Reeves.
Okay, did not see
movies.
that coming.
Samuel is thankful for the fact that AOC is fighting so damn hard for the people. Madam Congresswoman, we see you. And I'll also add on that we've got some more good, we got Cori Bush, we got Jamal Bowman, we got a number of other good, Marie Newman, we got a number of good people coming in that I'm thankful for too. Hopefully that will provide some dividends going forward for our politics. But anyway, to the audience, very thankful for you. Glad that you've made it this far. We've done it together. Thank you. Ana, I'm thankful for you, by the way. Thankful that you did the show with me today. Thank you so much for that.
John, you're the best. Everyone loves you for a reason. John's a sweetheart, and I love doing the show, so anytime.
Thank you. Well, I know you got to get ready for the Young Turks, but thank you again, and have a good one. I'm talking as if you're not like right over there. I'll probably see you in like 10 minutes. Anyway, exactly. But bye for now. And for those of you at home, let me read just a few more of your comments and super chats before I move on, because we do have an interview. We're gonna be talking with Dave Leventhal in a little bit. Always excited to see what news he's breaking. Ghost Dog sent in a super chat saying, Forrest, if I may say it's not official, I'm the Ghost Dragon, but I will give it up for Ana and be known as God Dragon, I guess. Well, she's apparently already Salt Dragon, if not Drywall Dragon. So let's see. Franklin Sharpslicer sent us in a poem. Says, I give thanks as the Prezzi's getting tanked. Plus Anna's heartthrob nailed himself a job. Be safe when you drank. Oh, there's rumor that Wyoming exists not. If true, I'm a poetic bot. Thanks. Thank you, Franklin. Christian getting a shout out in Franklin's poem there. Darren Butler says, making sure to watch every 7 p.m. stream. Man, where are you? It's 7 p.m. Love you, John and Guess. P.S. I will finally take up the title of Musical Dragon. Ready to bring the tunes. Thank you, Darren. Appreciate that. Rob Barracuda Shively says, remember when Trump was banned from the show? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Are we gonna start to blur his face again soon? Can we do that after inauguration? Let's do it. Anyway, John Person says, how surprised would you be if the turkeys Trump pardons are actually guilty of federal crimes? Well, they've been around him for a bit now, and pretty much nobody can exist in his orbit without becoming some sort of felon. Danger Dave says, my family is pressuring me to leave my state and come visit them, but I work in a hospital. I've explained the risk that if my job found out they'd fire me, that's the excuse I have to use. Potential death is not enough. I agree. By the way, do you know how easy it is to tell your family that you've gotten sick and not say that it's COVID, but like make it clear from the symptoms that it might be? What are they gonna do? Tell you like forget your sore throat and your coughing and your difficulty breathing, just come to dinner? No, and then you'll miraculously recover a few days later. It gets you past the holiday. Frog and Spit says, South Dakota's COVID response is infuriating. Personal responsibility sounds great. Reality is half of South Dakota calls it a hoax and won't wear masks. Our stats are atrocious. November 2019, we were in stitches over South Dakota's meth we're on it ads. I remember those. I think we covered those on the show. Yeah, now COVID, they're on it. Let's see. Shay says, do you think governors will brag about how many jobs they created when we get back to somewhat normal when those jobs are from those who have died? Yes, politicians will take credit in the same way that Ivanka Trump was taking credit for lower emissions. Noah Benjamin says, I'm thankful for TYT and Tabletop Simulator. I too am thankful for Tabletop Simulator. I've been using that with my board game group every week. We have one more thing to be thankful for. This coming from Bart, who left me this comment in the document saying, I'm thankful for the discovery of the monolith in Utah. The human race is a hot mess. It makes sense that the monolith is showing up. In alchemy, the monolith is regarded as the philosopher's stone, a stone of transformation. It creates epic triggers of transitions in the history of human evolution, from ape-like beings to civilized people. I know humanity is in a dark place, and I hope the human race moves towards enlightenment. Stanley Kubrick said it best, however vast the darkness, we must supply our own light. Oh, I really like that as a comment. I think the fact that you have made references to 2001: A Space Odyssey on my show is unacceptable, but Bart, I'm thankful for you. Anyway, over on Twitch, Keyjohn subscribed for the 6th month and says, worth every cent, glad to be a member of the Dragon Squad. Keyjohn, thank you for sticking with us. The Bugger says, I'm thankful for you, John, going through this hell with us, even when you don't want to get out of bed. Thank you for doing what you do. Even though you're not a comedian, I rank you with Colbert and Oliver. Thank you, the Bugger, I appreciate that. Let's see, the Kurd Burglar says, Anna, I never get to watch the main show live, but you and Cenk are critical to my end of night routine. Your fire and salt and Cenk's fire and salt, that's awesome. And Cenk's unbridled rage calm me down after a long night of work. Thank you so much for all you do. Glad I get the opportunity to tell you, I was a nervous spaz when I was playing Among Us with you. That's funny.
Aww.
That was so much fun.
Okay, so I didn't want to chime in again because you had already said bye to me, but I'm still here. But I did want to thank you for that comment. It's super sweet, and I really had fun playing Among Us that night. I wanted to also just respond quickly to the person who brought up the meth ad in South Dakota. So I'm shocked that no one else has called this out. But if you ever watch CNN live and they go to commercial break, they have like this lawyer group that talks about like defending people in mesothelioma cases. And they literally say, mesothelioma, it's all we do. It's like, oh, okay.
That is a weird thing to say, yeah. Car accidents, it's kind of my thing, you know? Yeah, I don't get ads a lot of the time. Like, you ever see like a big like printed out vinyl sign on the side of like a supermarket with like huge block letters and it's got a typo in it? You just think, man, we're never getting to the stars. Yeah. We can't even check our spelling on big. How many people saw that thing before it was printed?
No, anyway. You guys, real estate agents still put ads on bus benches. They still do. Like, why are you doing that? It takes approximately 5.2 seconds for someone to Sharpie the hell out of that ad. Like, but they still do it. You got to think outside the box, guys. Come on.
They should just add the mustache and the horns themselves. Like, it's gonna end up there. At least choose the horns you want.
Totally.
Anyway, Anna, once again, thankful for you. And once again, get off my stage.
All right, I'm leaving now. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. And for all of you watching at home, thank you so much for watching. We've got one more show for you. It is gonna be J.R. Jackson joining me for Big News Wednesdays. And you know what? I know that we tweeted that there's not gonna be a garbage person because generally we do those on Fridays and generally we need a whole week, but I wanna do it anyway. So I think we're gonna try to do one with JR. Maybe we can get a post up on the community tab on the channel. So check that at some point. And until then, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.